How do you tell if something is working or not working?
Whether you want to get out of bed and do it or not.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not really a problem I have had so long I can't remember.
How do you decide when it's time to cut your losses or get rid of something?
When I feel like I'm walking down like a familiar road or somebody else's road, you know, it's like when it doesn't get me out of bed. It's that simple, really.
It's that simple.
This is my primary function on Earth. If I'm not enjoying it, then there's no reason to do it.
Frank, so nice to see you.
Good to see you.
And just got off the phone with our mutual friend, Robert Rodriguez. I'm sure that name is going to come up again.
I am. Yeah.
I'm sure that's going to come up again. And before we even get close to Robert, thank you, Robert, for the introduction. I want to pick up on something we were chatting about briefly before we started recording. And this is Aristotle.
Yes.
All right. Why did Aristotle come into the conversation?
Aristotle's definition of happiness was the devotion of all of one's energies along lines of excellence. And I believe that is a general application that in an ideal life would apply to every moment you have. But it is a guiding principle to a creative life.
So let's then take maybe some of my props that we have here. And I'm going to go to my phone because I was reading an early copy of Push the Wall, My Life Writing, Drawing, and the Art of Storytelling. And I took a lot of highlights. And I had to take photographs of the PDF of my Kindle to look at some of them. And I wanted to go through a little list. This might seem strange, but I tend to obsess on the specifics. These are some of the tools of your trade. Blackwing graphite pencils, white paint, India black ink, liquid frisket, erasers, and sable brushes. And then it goes through description of a lot more. Winsor and Newton Series 7, mostly sizes 3 to 12, etc. Few questions that I want to ask about, including the toothbrush, my trusty spatter maker.
Yeah.
What is liquid frisket?
Liquid frisket is essentially glue.
Okay.
But it was first called that and used by oil painters to create highlights. What the painter would do he would lay down strokes of this glue across the paint, then paint across it. And then before declaring the painting finished, he or she would then wipe up the frisket, and you would have this sparkling, piece of the underpainting showing through, and so it creates a very dramatic highlight. Okay. I like to use it with ink because it creates an element of chaos.
An element of chaos. So you seem to be in a sense, someone who thrives in chaos or by creating certain types of chaos. And this monster that I'm holding, for those who are listening and not watching, I'm holding something in my lap that feels like it's 20 to 35 pounds. I was carrying it around, walking through New York City, getting a lot of odd looks because it's a rectangle about the size of an X-ray plate you would use to take an X-ray of both lungs. It's gigantic. Then this is Frank Miller's Sin City, The Hard Goodbye. And I want to just open this up, and I'm going to read something from right inside. This is from Jim Lee, another legend in the space, another hero of mine. For another time, I used to have his job at the same college as graphic editor of the Princeton Tiger. Found some old sketches of his in one of the desks, in fact. But here's his quote. Even after 25 years, Frank Miller's Sin City, The Hard Goodbye showcases the full potential of the comics medium. A stark, brilliant chiaroscuro, it remains a defiantly timeless, handcrafted love letter to the days of old in an increasingly slick and digital world. And I segued from the tools because when I look at some of these pages, and I'll provide some of these as B-roll and so on, looking at something like this, I'll just show that to it is a masterpiece. Any one of these could be on a wall by itself, but this is sequential storytelling. And I have many questions, but one of them is about kind of aliveness and that channeling all of your energies into excellence, because and I think this came up in the documentary about you as well, American Genius, that you kind of attack the page. Like there seems to be a real kinetic channeling of energy
Right.
into the page, which you can see in this particular version, the curator's collection. What did it feel like when you were making this that I'm holding?
Very physical.
Very physical.
Yes. Sin City was a real breakthrough that way because it was the first time I decided to work so damn big. The book you're holding is the actual size of the pages I did.
And so what is the size?
It's called Twice Up. It's 4 times the size of the published.
I mean, that
comic
is,
book.
it covers my entire body on video.
Only about half of it. But that is the size that comic books were originally drawn back in the 1940s. And over time, in order to pick up the speed of production and just lower the price of making comics, they made them smaller and smaller and smaller until finally they decided they ought to fit into an 11 by 17 photocopier and made the pages very, very tiny to work on, which was about the time I came in. And when I discovered these old originals from the 40s, I went, that's why they looked so damn good. And I decided with Sin City I was going to correct the error.
That's amazing. And toothbrush.
Yes.
I mentioned this at the end of your list. How do you use the toothbrush? Because I feel like this, at least in my mind, is one of the hallmark signatures in the minds of many of some Frank Miller artwork is this particular element. So how do you use the toothbrush?
Well, what I do is the lid of a bottle of India ink has a little squirter thing on it. And I squirt some of that onto the bristles of a toothbrush, run my thumb across a toothbrush, and it splatters across an effect that could be texture on a wall, texture in the sky, splurting blood, whatever you choose to make
just kind of dragging your thumb across the
spraying
bristles.
it as a child would.
Yep.
What I love is that it gives you that lovely element of chaos across a picture. Across time, I would combine or replace that with simply snapping a brush across my wrist, which would create more of an elongated, stretchy.
Sort of a slash.
It creates, again, something that's unpredictable, but very organic. That's just playing with the materials. So,
What was your motto? This is from the book as well. Your senior year of high school? I think it was.
Get the hell out of my way.
Get the hell out of my way.
I was impatient to leave school and get to work.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know if the impatience ended there. So I say that as someone who's also very impatient.
Yeah.
It has pros and cons. And I'm wondering the visceral violence that is channeled into creating, say, what we see on the page in Sin City. The kinetic aspect of it is so palpable. How do you relate to anger, using it the right dose, if there is a right dose, channeling it versus being controlled by it? How do you think about that fire, maybe is a better way to put it, within?
I mean, anger is a good word too. It's an important and powerful component to drama. I mean, drama is essentially conflict. If you go all the way back to like the Norse myths, but you can take it all the way from the Norse myths through to like terms of endearment or whatever else, those are all full of Sturm und Drang.
Right.
And comics are a purely visual medium and also a not very, on the face of it, powerful. There's no way a comic book can compete with the sheer, spectacular firepower of cinema. Cinema completely envelops so many of your senses, and it involves images that are perceptibly real, and real people expressing these emotions at you. And then when they want to do spectacle, they started proving it, way back with D.W. Griffith and sealed the deal with Star Wars. Nobody can touch them.
Yeah.
And they can outdo anything in stage, in any other form. So comics had to come out with like little Jack Kirby swinging and just showing, okay, we can't really do that. So we're going to go even more crazy. And, he made up characters who could eat planets. In the case of what I've been after with my comics is to have the drawing itself be so emotional and extreme. I'm trying to make it outact an actor.
What I love about your comics is, first of all, I should just point out to people that don't know anything about this world, you seem to me to be an outlier on a number of different levels, one of which is that you're very well known for your art and you are very well known for your writing. How common is that in the U.S. comic world?
In
Japan, it's a little more common. It's a little more typical, but in the U.S., where would you?
It's more common than it used to be because it used to be almost not allowed. There were a few exceptions. There was Will Eisner, for instance, who was really outstanding in that he clearly ran the whole show.
For people who have no context whatsoever, why is Eisner such an important figure?
I mean, he's one of the founding fathers, for one thing, because he could do the entire thing. But other people could as well, but he decided to keep doing the entire thing rather than just becoming part of a factory. Of course, he ran his own factory, but that's a whole nother story. But ultimately, he settled on doing his one series, The Spirit, which is known as the Neal Adams of The Spirit. And even though he employed other people along the way, he always ran the show and supervised it completely. And as he got older, he started doing work that he did top to bottom by himself. That was of much more personal nature, where he once again turned comics in a new direction.
Let's explore other figures who have helped showcase the potential of this medium through innovating, because I love this terrain because people listening may not be comic lovers, but there's some medium that they're fascinated by. And whether it's in the realm of fiction and let's just say novels, whether it's in film, whether it's in comics, there are things that we might take for granted now that were not at all obvious a decade or two ago. And it seems like a good time to maybe talk about Jack Kirby and how he impacted the world of comics. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I was reading, and this is straight from your book, that for a long time comics were set panels, in a sense, right? And you kind of filled in the blanks to the extent that artists would sometimes get sort of I don't want to say cut, but sort of outlined pages within which to place their work.
There were a lot of various ways they were restricted. I mean, it's in various ways. And a lot of this happened before I was around, so I don't know. But I think the reason you bring Kirby up in this respect was he was the guy who came in when comics all had either a 9-panel grid or a 6-panel grid. They were all the panels on the same page. And more than anybody, he blasted that to pieces. He was like our D.W. Griffith. He just ripped the camera off the floor, and all of a sudden he would use 2 pages for a single image. For a kid like me, it was mind-expanding. This one guy just kept coming back decade after decade after decade. I mean, he started way before I was born. I mean, he served in World War II with my parents. Not side by side, but, he had several comebacks. And each time he seemed to reinvent the whole Megillah.
You have, it seems like, a few different guiding phrases. We have one, of course, from the book title itself, Push the Wall. Another one that comes to mind is Defy the Code. Can you expand on both of these, please? Why these two?
The pushing the wall, or pushing the walls, is just, comics have always been this strangely schizophrenic field where, on the one hand, you have artists, cartoonists, writers, or such people who want to explore and try new things. The nature of these fantasies is exploratory.
Mm-hmm.
But the business has always been very conservative. People who grew up on comics became themselves very tradition bound. They would fret over things like what we call continuity, worrying about you're working on issue number 385 of Spider-Man. You can't contradict something that was done in issue 14, which is on the face of it absurd because the character would be 85 if it were around that long. And so you had this hidebound on one side and this like enthusiastic experimental field on the other. I've always just wanted to pull us more toward to people looking for a future and for trying out new stuff.
How did you, and we're going to jump around chronologically, of
All
course,
right.
but let me see if I can find this particular paragraph from your book. It relates to a name that you will recognize, and that is Neal Adams. So Neal was a hard taskmaster, utterly ruthless in his criticism. He was a godsend. I just want to read another paragraph. We'll get into the description of who this is, but you cold called his office. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, cold called his office. This is when no one knows who you are. And then ultimately, I think it was his daughter who answered the phone. She says, Dad, we got another one.
Yeah.
Somehow you ended up in the office. You show him your work. And then, and I'll quote here, he told me just how awful my stuff was and didn't bother with using any sugarcoating either. Where'd you say you were from? Vermont? Go back to Vermont. Pump gas. Get married. You're no good and you never will be.
Yep.
End quote. I gulped. This is referring to you. And then asked, can I fix it and show you again tomorrow? To which Neal responds, yeah, I'll see you tomorrow. He growled. Okay. Who is Neal and why did you reach out to him?
Well, that's Neal Adams.
Yeah, who is he?
He was, in a way, a one-man generation because there was a long period where nobody entered the comics business because it didn't pay well.
Mm-hmm.
And believe me, the common wisdom was we'd be out of business soon.
Mm-hmm.
We'd just been through the horrors of the comics code and the public humiliation and the self-censorship of that time.
Mm-hmm.
And been disgraced going from a mass medium and being turned into a punchline, a dirty punchline.
Yeah.
And there were just a few people keeping the light alive and still doing these old titles like The Flash and so on. But the books were looking pretty crummy.
Mm-hmm.
But there were these glimmers. There were these guys, some of the old guys just stayed there and kept doing great stuff. An artist named Gil Kane, for instance. But there was Neal Adams. He was this new guy who came in young and brought such enthusiasm and a whole new look. A whole new take me seriously look. It was a much more realistic look. And he dragged a whole generation with him in a lot of ways, not just with his work. He did it with his speech and with his actions. He opened up a studio in Manhattan called Continuity, which did advertising work and essentially became a halfway house for comic book artists to come in and get his training. And then where he became the guru of this place. When I called up, I looked up his number in the phone book, as you said, spoke to his daughter, got to see him that day, and started hanging out there. And I started living on little advertising jobs. Sometimes I'd just color them, and then eventually I'd get to draw them and so on. And then he lined up my first comic book work, and I was hardly the only one.
I'm so fascinated by this exchange and his willingness to help for a few different reasons, right? Number one is I wonder, how did this guy muster the bandwidth to do his own work, run a business, and also mentor? Just that question alone.
Yeah.
And then I also think about the sliding door moment of what if he had just had a really bad day and he was like, you're not coming back tomorrow, kid. Sorry, I'm too busy, right? Like, what a different life.
I'm sorry. I got to blow my own horn.
Yeah, blow your own horn.
I was a pretty determined little bastard, so, I would have been back anyway.
You would have been back anyway?
Yeah. Okay. I had banged on many doors before his.
Well, okay, so this was actually going to be my next question, which was like, why do you think he agreed to let you come back he was like, go pump gas, go back to Vermont. And then you're like, let me fix it and come back tomorrow. And he's like, okay, fine. Right? So
Actually, no, it was because I asserted that I wanted to fix it.
Okay, got it.
It was because I didn't cry and leave.
How many interactions like that? How many different visits showing him work did it take for him to finally say that your work was not for throwing away?
It wasn't all that many, I don't think.
Okay.
Then I worked on short little jobs for, for Gold Key Comics. That was an old publisher a long time ago, and so on, where they would hire you for a 3-page job where you got $25 a page, that kind of thing. That was what they called paying your dues.
Yeah. We're going to hop around a little bit, but people need to read the book. They need to see the doc. But I know a lot of people have covered certain aspects of your bio. You first gained notoriety in the late 70s for your transformative work on Daredevil, right? Now, I also, and this is pulling from the book, read a bit, and I'm putting a character, you'll have to explain, but Elektra in kind of brackets because I'm inserting that. But now I'm quoting you, was the true genesis of my career in comic books. Could you speak to that chapter of your life that involved Elektra and what the significance of that was?
Oh, I think that was because I didn't come in as the writer on Daredevil. I just simply came in as an artist for hire. And realized fairly early on that this was no way to do it.
Why not?
Because the pictures and the words are one thing. The words were obvious once I drew the pictures, and I very quickly took over plotting the stories and so on. I felt that Daredevil needed a counterpoint, a femme fatale. And I came up with Elektra, but I realized I was going to hold her back until I was writing the book myself. And I did it that way.
I suppose what I'm trying to unpack is, and maybe I'm overstating the importance, but was that sort of introduction of Elektra an important inflection point for you in some way?
Yes.
In what way was it important?
Well, if you look at those old comics, that's when, in a way, I started understanding what a Marvel comic was. And a Marvel comic isn't a story every month. A Marvel comic is an ongoing soap opera that you're following. And as soon as, with my first issue that I wrote, it was called Elektra, and it was all about them. From then on, the whole thing becomes one sprawling, and I mean sprawling in both good and bad ways, sort of epic, where characters come and characters go, but it's focused around a fairly small cast. There's a diabolical kingpin who runs all the gangs. There's the deadly enemy Bullseye, neither of whom I made up. And there's, Daredevil and Elektra. And all of this is like a tortured romance that the hero is in love with a psychotic assassin. So it's bound to have some trouble.
Bound to have some tears involved at some point.
It was very adolescent. It came from a very adolescent state of mind. But I'm very proud of it.
I mean, I loved Elektra.
It was really inspired.
I have a lot of comics with Elektra at my childhood home on Long Island to this day, polybagged with backing. And
whenever I'm asked to draw her or anything, it's just great,
So for folks who don't have any familiarity, and also because I want to better understand it, I mean, there are different approaches to making a comic and also crafting a story, right? And so I want to pull up something that I have here. And it's going to take me a second to read, but I'd love you to walk people through this after I read at least some of it. All right. Everything starts with and proceeds from story. Some simple story rules. Number 1, start your story as late into the action as possible. End it as early into the action as possible. 2, get your hero into trouble fast. That or give the hero a pressing problem to solve. I work on the spine of the story. That's a phrase that I'd love for you to define. Work on the spine of the story and figure out how it starts and ends, and then roughly plot the in-between. And I'll just read one more sentence, and then I'll let you kind of fill. To do this, I make notes and create scenes that will advance the storyline, but allow room for digressions and narrative side streets. And then you talk about preliminary sketches and so on. Can you expand on this and just Maybe give an example of how you would do that, whether it's with a book like Sin City or any other that comes to mind.
How I do what?
How you actually start from step one in creating a story, then proceed through that. It seems like also in the introduction that having a very good idea of where your story ends is a critical piece of that.
I knew at the beginning of Sin City that Marvel was going to die.
Yeah.
For instance, it's very important. Of course, when I started Dark Knight, I thought Batman was going to die, but it didn't work out that way.
Yeah.
My methodology has changed over time. It used to be more rigid than what you just read.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I used to really believe there was a way, and I was seeking the way to do it. Mm-hmm. Now I do believe in letting a story nudge me in another direction. Mm-hmm. I believe in trusting the muse more than I used to.
How does that show up then in practice? Do you have, the starting point, the end of the story, you have characters in a situation? Do you draw your way through and then figure out kind of the narrative arc?
Well, yes.
What is the proper blend for you now of
the thing
structure
is to
serendipity?
Come in thinking of yourself as being the generator of the story, surely. Mm-hmm. And saying that these are the pieces of clay and this is what I want to do with them. But to realize that the artistic process is not at its best when it's an egomaniacal process. And sometimes the characters talk back.
Right.
And sometimes they know more than you do. Mm-hmm. And always be aware that there will be that flash, that thing that happens where all of a sudden you're in a different story and you realize this is the one that, no, this isn't the one I was looking for, but this is the where I want to be. Mm-hmm. I don't know. To me, it's sort of like being a space explorer and being ready for things. Mm-hmm. And knowing that the whole job is really, is trying to figure out what to ignore and what to follow.
Yeah.
I like the mystery of storytelling more than the power I used to see in it.
Well, let's talk about picking and choosing, and specifically would love to hear, I lived in Japan as an exchange student and learned to read and speak Japanese largely from reading comic books.
Oh, so Kozori Kami must have kept you busy.
I mean, I was busy reading all sorts of comic books with my little electronic dictionary.
I would have loved to read Kozori Kami in Japanese.
Oh, yeah. It's a different experience, of course.
I'll bet.
How did you first get exposed to, for instance, Moebius, Otomo, any others you want to mention? How did you get exposed to those influences, and who are they?
The two main invasions in American, well, three. There were three, actually. The first was the English, because DC Comics started publishing Brian Bolland and Mike McMahon and all the rest. But they were the easiest for everybody to see because they were all American comics fans. And, the language was the same and everything. It started getting a lot wilder when Forbidden Planet Comics opened in New York.
Love Forbidden Planet.
Yeah. And when Marvel started publishing Moebius. And then the floodgates opened because it was Europe just knocked everybody's socks off. It was Moebius. But there were the other guys, too, that nobody was paying attention to.
Yeah.
Moebius, obviously, was a tidal wave that swept through culture.
Yeah.
His effect on cinema and so on. And for me, the other event was I had a girlfriend, and her father was a businessman who did a lot of business in Japan. And she tossed me a just like phone book that was a Japanese comic, and it was Kozori Kami. And I opened it and studied it and fell in, and like Ronin was born that day. And my storytelling style changed everything. And from that, I helped bring the title over and helped with the Asian invasion. Seeing it all become so much more international, it's just been fascinating. And with the Asian stuff, you've got just a completely different sense of time.
Yes.
And space. It is the dead opposite of the European.
When was Moebius sort of at his peak of influence? What would have been the timing roughly on that?
Oh, geez, I couldn't name the exact date. Certainly.
Just decades.
he's up there with Jack Kirby in terms of being one of those people who, it's like if you're listening Beethoven and Mahler and all of that.
I'm trying to figure out if the timing is such, because I've looked at tons of Moebius artwork, that Moebius
when did
could
Alien
have,
come out?
When did
Alien come out?
Oh, Alien. Good question. I mean, it would have been post Star Wars. I was just trying to think, because like Moebius, also a lot of his artwork makes me think of like Tatooine and some of these things in Star Wars. So I'm wondering what the
Well, Moebius'
directionality is.
influence with Star Wars is huge.
Yeah, okay,
without
great.
question.
That's what I was trying to answer for myself, because
yeah.
it seems so obvious when you look at it. And to come back to the Japanese, the comic book that I use, it's not a well-known title, certainly outside of Japan. Even within Japan, a lot of Japanese people kind of scratch their head when I tell them what it's called. Rokudenashi Blues, which is a Rokudenashi Blues, which is about high school gangs, which aren't really a thing, but they pretend like it is. And, you know, the bad kids wear different types of uniforms called chodan, or like, anyway. And but it's a hyper violent, there are a lot of fight scenes in this, which made it a little less intimidating for someone who couldn't yet really read Japanese, right? So my translating burden was lower with this comic, and the art was spectacular. And what blew my mind, because I had read comics all the way through my childhood up to that point, and I was 15 when I got to Japan. Like you said, it was how time and space and speed and motion were depicted so differently, and how they captured, say, the swing of a leg, or created the effect of blur, was so captivating to me. It was unlike anything I had seen.
They could draw people relax so well. You know, so much of the drawing in Lone Wolf and Cub, people aren't lazing around and stuff. And even in combat, what they're capturing is the fluidity and grace of the movement. I mean, it's the opposite of Kirby, where everything is angles and force. It's a very Asian violence. And in Europe, you'll often see a very elegant, you know, Moebius's violence, when he went really violent, it would be jarring and horrible, but it would still be gorgeous. And it would still be, the wrist would be crooked just that much, you know, as it slammed into the person's face and so on. And it's just the difference of cultures reflected in every aspect of cartooning is fascinating.
How did the European and Japanese styles, so that would incorporate Lone Wolf and Cub, influence then how your approach changed after that?
I was very young. I was in my 20s. And so I sat down and I did a book that imitated them shamelessly in Ronin. I did Kojima with the samurai scenes, and I did Moebius with the science fiction scenes. And I discovered Agibee Law and did him all over the place. And, you know,
what was that experience like for you in doing that? Did you find it energizing?
Oh, it was great. It was like any transition that big is a rebirth.
All right. I'm going to ask you a lot more about Ronin, which I have in my suitcase back at my hotel. But before we get there, I want to talk about, because I believe I saw this in the book as well, like effectively if you're boring yourself, or if you're bored, you're going to bore your audience and like throw it out and start over. When do you know if something is working? And I'll pull out an example of what seems like something that was working. And what was the name of the colorist? Is it Glynis? Is that how you say her name?
Yeah, Glynis is Oliver Glynis Ween.
Right. So during some of the work on Daredevil, would call you up and say how excited she was working on it.
Yeah.
That seems like a signature of something working.
Yeah.
How do you tell if something is working or not working?
Whether you want to get out of bed and do it or not.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not really a problem I have had so long I can't remember.
If you look back at what you've ended up being happiest with or less happy with, with hindsight 2020, this doesn't necessarily mean audience response, right? I'm not talking about market response.
I understand.
Just like intrinsic working for you. I suppose what I'm looking for is just any thoughts for folks who have trouble throwing things away because they just have a high default level of excitement. So they get wedded to something and they're like, I'm not going to throw this away. And they have trouble killing their darlings or murdering their darlings, right? Which is another line that you like.
I love that line.
Yeah. Maybe some way of backing into this would be, what are some examples of things that you have thrown out? How do you decide when it's time to cut your losses or get rid of something?
When I feel like I'm walking down like a familiar road or somebody else's road,
Yeah.
you know, it's like when it doesn't get me out of bed. It's that simple, really.
It's that simple.
This is my primary function on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm not enjoying it, then there's no reason to do it.
Time to switch gears. Ronin seemed like such an all-in, bold adventure on a lot of levels.
Yeah.
And this is lesson 6 in your book. The Dark Knight cometh, smash expectations. But here's where it starts. And there's a quote from Rudyard Kipling, which is, if you can meet triumph and disaster and treat those two imposters just the same. Now, here's the first part that I wanted to quote, and I won't do the whole thing, but there's nothing like a broken nose to clarify the mind. As a creative experience, Ronin was a fascinating, exhilarating exploration, and it goes on. Why was Ronin a broken nose?
Because I got excoriated for it. I had an angry audience, you know, people who wanted to be like Daredevil.
Yep, they wanted more of the same from you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
After initial high sales, they dropped.
Mm-hmm.
And it was not the reception DC wanted.
Mm-hmm.
They were playing funeral music, and it would go on. And I'd had nothing but a run of successes before. So
how did you feel after that? I mean, I'm not comparing my books to anything you've done. These are iconic pieces of work that you've produced. But I remember having my first 2 books succeed.
Yeah.
Expectations for the third, sky high.
Yeah.
Initially does really well, and then for whatever reason just doesn't meet expectations. Sure. And I took it so incredibly personal.
Oh, God,
I had a really hard time with it.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering.
End of the world.
Yeah. What was it like for you?
End of the world.
End of the world.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
How long did it feel like the end of the world?
I don't know. It was a while. But the thing is that it was useful because I started examining it and said, what didn't work? Mm-hmm. You know, you didn't connect. It's like you did something.
Yeah.
It made me go, okay, let's go for broke and put something together and develop the theories, do something that'll work. Mm-hmm. And I ended up doing the most structured, ruthlessly structured thing I've ever done in my life, which was Dark Knight. I mean, it's so structured, it's ridiculous. It breaks into 16-page increments across 4 48-page books. Mm-hmm. And each one has a 3-act structure. So it's a 4-act structure with 3-act structures. Mm-hmm. Basically, it's a tetralogy.
That was a conclusion or a direction you chose after analyzing Ronin, or some of the reasons? Why didn't Ronin work? What do you think are some of the reasons it didn't work?
I think that it drifted into surrealism. It was a fantasy, and it was not of its time, without question.
You lick your wounds. It's the end of the world for a little while, but then you do a postmortem.
Yeah.
And
you come out of it better, your job.
And you come out of it.
Yeah.
And then moving into The Dark Knight Returns, how are you thinking about getting back in the ring and working with this? You mentioned the structure as one aspect of it. Anything else that was important for you to keep in mind personally as you moved into working on that particular project?
I was into it. The complexity of it was something I had never attempted before. Mm-hmm. There's so many goddamn characters in that thing. Mm-hmm. And they're all moving in 18 directions at once. I don't know, once I was into it. I wasn't thinking about Ronin or anything else.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a hell of a all-consuming scope, right?
Yeah,
so it's like you have to keep your hand on the wheel and pay attention.
Yeah.
Am I getting the timeline right that you were working on The Dark Knight Returns at the same time that Alan Moore was working on Watchmen? Or am I getting that timeline
It was a little before, but they overlapped.
They overlapped because
they overlapped. I think they started affecting each other in subtle ways.
In what types of ways?
I don't know exactly, because Alan and I knew each other.
Yeah.
We met while we were doing those 2 books. I had launched Dark Knight, and he was boiling over with Watchmen. Mm-hmm. And his British stuff is all over the place. And it was all part of this whole I don't know what you could call what we did to the superhero, but it was reconstruction, deconstruction,
Yeah.
whatever it was. His approach seemed more to really go at the underbelly of it. And mine was to reconstitute, in an uglier world, to reconstitute
The hero.
basic gist of the hero. Yeah.
I know why this came to mind for me, and to give credit again where credit's due. Frank Miller, American Genius. Silenn Thomas, sitting about 15 feet away.
Glowering.
Always making amazing things
Glowering
happen.
at us. Make an ugly face.
She's behaving for the time being. But got some great footage from Alan, who basically said he heard these murmurs about what you were working on and that it was amazing. And he was like, oh shit, basically. Better really up my game.
Sounds like it.
The reason I wanted to bring this up is that I just find having at least some other player on the field who's really good forces you to improve.
Oh, Alan made me so much better at so many things, because when I came back to Daredevil, for instance, all of a sudden it was like, oh my God, I'm just writing. And there's Alan Moore out there now. And all of a sudden I was just trying so much, trying so hard to be a writer, and he also brought back horror.
He brought back horror.
Yeah. There hadn't been any horror in comics for generations.
Yeah. And what makes Alan interesting to you? Just to take a sidebar on that.
He's the smartest fan there ever was.
The smartest fan.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Inside all of that, he is a guy who grew up in comics. Okay? But he's just so damn smart that he's able to take the stuff of his childhood joy and to take it down into places that nobody's ever dreamt it could go before. Anything he's ever done, he's transformed utterly. I mean, the first time he sat down to write Swamp Thing, he changed the entire precept of the character. That's something a lot of people miss, is that it had always been this guy who fell into the muck and got transformed into a swamp guy. And in his very first issue of Swamp Thing, Alan transformed him into a collection of swamp weeds that used this human as a model to construct a new body for itself. There was no human in there at all anymore. First time at bat, the first time I ever saw his name.
It's just completely reinventing
Scared
a
the
character.
crap out of me. Yeah. He was something when he showed up.
I promised I would bring back Robert at some point.
Sure.
And feel free if there's anything you'd like to dive into that I'm bouncing around and not hitting, let me know. But you've described Robert as an angel of sorts. Why is that? Robert Rodriguez.
Well, for one thing, he's to be around him, you're around a man of constant goodwill.
Yeah, very much so.
And of generous energy.
He's very generous. Just a quick, sorry to interrupt, but people might find this funny. When I moved to Austin in 2017, the very first person I had over for dinner at my house, and I was very excited about it, was Robert, who I'd known for a while, and invited him over. He was on his way, and then I realized, wait a second, I have no plates and I have no silverware. And so he brought over 2 plates from his house, plus silverware, which I still have to this day. So that's Robert. That's Robert. He's like, keep the plates and the silverware. I think you're going to need it next time.
Oh my God.
So Frank, you were mentioning Robert's generous spirit, and I wanted to underscore something that I only learned after watching the documentary, which is that Rodriguez, as I understand it, quit the Directors Guild so that you could receive co-director credit. I had no idea. That seems wild.
I remember the day he did it. Yeah.
Can you describe what happened on that day?
No, he just told me he just did it.
Yeah.
They said you didn't have the, what was the word for it?
What, the credentials? Or
it wasn't credentials. It was something along those lines. But he just grinned and said, so I quit. Because he didn't want anything to stand in the way of us just moving ahead. He knew that I needed the authority on the set because they were his people. And everybody there was, they were so loyal to him that he'd need to be able to bequeath that to me for things to really work the way both of us needed them to.
What was it like working on that film with Robert? How do you how did you divide or mesh your duties?
At one point, somebody in production made this ridiculous poster of the two of us as a two-headed beast because we were working right on top of each other the whole time. There was another point where we were shooting orders right past each other, although we were almost always saying the same thing. But there was one point where we weren't saying exactly the same thing. And there was Brittany Murphy in the middle of her scene.
One of the actors.
Yeah, and there she was as a scantily clad barmaid. And she just tossed up I think she tossed her tray in the air and says, "There's two of them." But generally, it was just a dream. After a while, they tended to know which one to go to for which kind of problem.
The actors did.
Yeah, oh yeah. And so did production.
What were those different types of problems? I'm so
Well,
curious.
certainly anything to do with really the mechanics of making the movie was Robert.
Right.
But when it came to the internal workings of the
The
characters,
motivations of the
the
characters.
histories, or if they wanted to try something out, I could fairly quickly tell them whether it was in character or not. We would often just get together, the two of us, and go over a bunch of stuff. And there were any number of cases where Robert would come to me and say, I need a new shot here. I need a new scene here. I remember one time he said, "I need something new here, Frank. It's got to be quick, it's got to be cheap, and it's got to be brilliant." And we just sat down with a sheet of paper. And it was some of the most fun I ever had. Working so damned fast, and
And knowing Robert, having spent a good amount of time with him, we both live in Austin, I can see both of you working together.
Yeah.
It's very easy for me to see.
Yeah.
And I encourage people to listen to my episodes I've done with Robert. Start with the first one about his creative process and bio, but he used to draw comics, right?
Yeah.
He drew comics. He's very unorthodox. He doesn't feel like he has to follow a fixed set of rules. And I don't know if he did this on set for Sin City, but he'll often have actors painting. He'll be playing guitar.
Oh, no, that was so important, yeah. He always wanted to keep the creative juices flowing. There was one time when he rented out a hall in Austin, and Bruce Willis and his band played.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So there's Bruce Willis up there pounding it out like doing his Springsteen.
Keep the creative juices flowing.
Yeah.
And he really walks the talk. And also, I may be stating the obvious for people, but when I look at, say, Sin City as you created it here, it's so inherently cinematic and directorial in terms of angles, framing. I've always felt that way. Even looking at, say, storyboards, I'm like, okay, well, I mean, there's, if not the same, certainly, I mean, there's a lot that rhymes. And so when I'm looking at these innovations with, say, whether it's back in the day with Jack Kirby or looking at some of the Japanese influences and how they capture motion differently, it makes me think of innovations in film at the same time, where you think of like a Kurosawa doing like a Rashomon and inserting multiple perspectives.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, I mean, you're solving a lot of the same problems and exercising seemingly a lot of the same creative muscles.
Yeah. That's the way media works, though. That's the way art forms work. It's funny because it's like, so many people strive so hard to act as if they work in a vacuum. And no one does. And the influences are constant and inexorable. That's kind of the beauty of the beast, really. I mean, occasionally this one piercing person will come through. But even Hitchcock came from somewhere.
Yeah.
You can even cut back to what he sprung from, or Wells, or whatever. And even those two were in pretty tight competition. And did a lot of the same tricks. So it's like, it's all a big mishmash.
What are some of your, outside of the films you've been involved with, what are some of your favorite films, whether they are scripted, documentary, or otherwise? Take your time. We're not in a rush.
I'm a big fan of old black and whites. It's no secret. You know?
Yeah. Right.
But that's not just all of film noir. I can give you chapter and verse on film noir, but that's all over the book and everywhere else. But occasionally I'll see an absolute masterpiece. Like the Caine Mutiny comes to mind.
I'm not familiar with it. What is the Caine Mutiny?
Caine Mutiny is a World War II story featuring an absolutely brilliant Humphrey Bogart playing exactly the opposite of the kind of character you'd expect him to play. He plays an almost Richard Nixonian figure of a World War II destroyer minesweeper pilot who is completely paranoid. Fred McMurray plays a character you would never expect him to play. This is not My Three Sons. This is Fred McMurray is a very serious actor playing a military lawyer. And it's a study in paranoia on the high seas.
What appeals to you about the movie? Or do you just get swept up in it? Is it that these actors are doing what seems diametrically opposed to what people associate them with? Is it something else?
Not particularly. I just love high drama.
Yeah.
And I often do love to see an actor like Bogart play a character who you don't expect. Maltese Falcon typecast him for the rest of his career. Before that, he played many, many roles, which were often shifty, nasty little men. He played a paranoid killer once in an adaptation, I believe, of a James M. Cain novel. I love to see the actors when they aren't trapped by the audience's expectations. The things that Robert Mitchum was capable of. He was pretty extraordinary. But also, I like to see the movies that really were discovering what they could do.
Pushing the edges?
And, well, or finding them.
Finding the edges.
If you look at Grapes of Wrath, that movie is hunting for what it is. But it's doing so in such a compelling way. It's got it in such a aching way. Henry Fonda is extraordinary in that movie. And also, I just like to get in the hands of a great director. That's why I do keep getting back to Hitchcock. I love falling back into one of his old movies. I can watch Rebecca, I swear, every night.
I've never seen it.
Oh, it is so good. It is one of the most romantic movies you'll ever see. And it's occasionally very spooky. It's a date movie.
All right. Well, done. Thanks for doing my homework for me. What artists or art forms have influenced the work that you do outside of comics themselves?
Well, movies. A lot. And lots of books I've read. You know,
Lots of books. What types of books?
Oh, come on. I grew up reading Mickey Spillane novels. And from that, you know, all the other crime stuff. And somewhere along the line, I fell in love with like ancient history. And you know, that's where I got 300 and all of that.
Monopoly, right.
History is just this endless wealth. It's like everywhere you turn, there's more and more to get. It's very, very breathtaking. Well, when I was a kid, I watched a lot of TV, but I don't now.
Yeah. Well, let's come back to 300 and your other adventures in Hollywood.
Okay.
What have you learned? Because I ask this selfishly. When I work on my stuff, I'm a control freak, complete control freak. And a lot of my friends are control freaks. And I've just seen a number of different train wrecks when Hollywood and the structures in Hollywood collide with a creative who has a story or something that they view as their baby. I've just seen a lot of messes. And I'm wondering what you have learned about working in entertainment or Hollywood.
Right. Oh, boy, I've got one overriding thing.
Okay.
More important than anything else is the right people. You know, the right people. It's like when I've worked with the right people, the experiences have been wonderful and the results have been wonderful.
How do you know, for you, who the right people are? Because there's just so many slick folks in LA. No offense to anyone in LA. I know. But man, do you get told what you want to hear? And I'd love to know how you identify, having spent some time in the trenches.
I don't know, man. All I can tell you is that I've been exceedingly lucky once, and I've been unspeakably lucky the other time. I was exceedingly lucky with Zack Snyder. Because in his case, He was taking control. He was going to do it. Okay. And he did a brilliant job.
Mm-hmm.
In the case of Robert Rodriguez, that was heaven because it was the adventure of a lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
When it's been more distant than that, it's been Bye Bye Baby more. Has been the same thing.
More distant, meaning?
That it just happens.
Mm-hmm. Got it.
That it's something that I did in a Marvel DC comic that gets adapted.
Mm-hmm.
That I end up seeing pieces of what I did mixed in with things that feel like they came out of a Dirty Harry movie, mixed with things that came out of Scooby-Doo, and it all gets a little, less exciting.
So let's just say you created a masterpiece in the next 12 months that everyone in Hollywood's fighting over. How do you make some of the important decisions about who to work with? Do you call Robert and you're like, hey, what do you think about these people? Do you call Zack Snyder and
the
ask him?
The answer is right across the room.
Okay.
I mean, Silenn Thomas runs my company, and she really knows what she's doing. And before I really hear about anything, she already knows all these people and what they're doing and everything.
Right. Yeah, good hire.
I wouldn't even call it a hire. It's a partnership.
Yeah, that's what I mean. All roads lead to Silenn. She's bowing in the background.
She's waving us away.
I want to ask about alcohol.
Yeah.
What is your relationship to alcohol? What has it done for or against you?
Oh, I wouldn't call it an easy question, but it's a simple enough one.
Mm-hmm.
Especially the way you phrased it.
Mm-hmm.
Simple answer, against me, a lot. For me, nothing.
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 Mm-hmm.
It's taken a long time to come to that conclusion.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big old aspect of my life. It's a genetic condition that I allowed to get out of control. I would say I did use it to disinhibit me and probably worked very, very productively because of it and did stuff that was inspired and occasionally reckless. But the deleterious effects and the ways it's affected other parts of my life, no, it hasn't done me a goddamn bit of good.
How did you stop?
I was coerced to stop. Silenn and others decided I was going to die and arranged for me to be put in a place and watched.
Mm-hmm.
And, the time had to pass and medicine's given and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a while.
Yeah.
I will tell you this in all sincerity. This is not posturing in a bit for either one of you. I'm having a time of my life in that respect. I mean, creatively, this is like, okay, now I can get serious. Okay.
Yeah.
For one thing is what happens when you get off the sauce.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine any addictions like this. You don't realize how much anger that it has been bottled up in it.
Mm.
And how what you thought was fuel.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I thought I was fueled by all this.
Mm-hmm.
This kind of like fire. Oh, it doesn't fuel you. It doesn't fuel you. It's like saying, oh, it's great to have my stomach feel this way when you're constipated.
Right.
It's a lot better to be focused and moving. Clarity is quite lovely.
So did the getting off of alcohol in and of itself dissipate the fire or the anger, or did the getting sober allow you to better deal with that in some way?
It helps you understand when and where it's appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
Plenty to be angry about.
Yeah.
But it's not this free floating, am I mad at myself? Am I mad at the world?
Mm-hmm. What advice would you give to a dedicated novice who's looking to get into comics
I
And
thought you really looking get into drinking.
like get into drinking. Where should they? What's your favorite cocktail? No, comics.
Yeah.
And they're a student of the craft. They're obsessed. They're dedicated.
Yeah.
They have the raw ingredients that maybe Neal saw in you,
Mm-hmm.
right? What advice would you give to them?
It's what I said in the book, which is story, story, story.
Mm-hmm.
First, think of it as one craft.
Mm-hmm.
Think of writing and drawing as one thing, and it will become clear what it is. But beyond that, it's cartooning is making things that are very complicated and making them quite simple.
Mm-hmm.
That's where your mind should be going more than anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
At this stage, complication is not your friend.
Mm-hmm.
Convey information, but then learn that. Pick up Scott McCloud's book on understanding comics, for instance, and see how he breaks down how comics work.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, pick up Sid Field's book on screenplay.
Yeah, good advice.
Get a good sense for a simple approach to three-act storytelling. You'll use it for a year or two, and then and then you won't be using it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But it gets you somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Learn how to draw.
How do you learn how to draw? I think this is in the book, but Neal Adams telling you to go out and buy some toy cars so you can learn how to draw cars correctly.
That was great advice.
Great advice, right? What great advice. So what a simple solve. What a simple solution. How does someone
learn how to draw?
Yeah,
like humans. Humans are the big problem, And oh man, every dirty trick there is.
Mm-hmm.
I can give you some names of some books.
Yeah, that'd be great. Please.
Okay. Let's see. George Bridgman.
George Bridgman.
Yeah. Okay. There's no E in it, in Bridgman.
All right.
There is an E in George, but no George in Bridgman. And it's the complete guide to drawing from life. It's only about the figure.
Why do you like that book? There's so many books on drawing. Why do you like this one?
Because he's at heart a cartoonist. He treats the body like a machine, so it's easier to understand.
Mm-hmm.
You do get the gesture, but you'll have to bring that yourself anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff's completely non-photographic.
Mm-hmm.
It's somewhere between the thinking of Michelangelo and the thinking of a comic book artist.
Mm-hmm. That's cool.
So
that's the non-photographic. That seems critical here, right?
There is another person people like a lot named Andrew Loomis.
Andrew Loomis?
Yeah. It's Loomis.
Mm-hmm.
I favor him less because his work has a sleeker, smoother look. Mm-hmm. And I favor the more mechanical, muscular style. But usually any aspiring comic book artist will have both those books on the shelf.
Mm-hmm. How did you learn perspective, structures? How did you learn how to work with perspective?
The trick to perspective is you realize that it is a trick.
Mm-hmm.
It's a complete lie.
Okay.
Perspective does not exist.
Mm-hmm.
It's an invention by mathematicians. So do keep that in mind when you worry about perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a device that you apply to a drawing.
Mm-hmm.
But you know that when you look down this room, that lines seem to converge and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So what you do is you rough out the basic shape of what you think something is.
Mm-hmm.
And then you converge a couple of those lines.
Mm-hmm.
And they hit at a point, and that becomes the horizontal. And you can keep your vertical straight up, or you can give it an upper or lower tilt, and so on. There are books on perspective, too. I just don't know the names.
Mm-hmm. But how did you develop your abilities with perspective?
Imitating other comic book artists.
Yeah. I have to say, and hopefully this doesn't sound strange, but looking at this gigantic beast here, looking at, for instance, this is one of many, many different pages that I captured just to revisit. But when I look at some of these, I'll show, this is the one I showed before. I'll show it again.
Oh, yeah.
This one here. Right. So you look at this 2-page spread, and I'll describe it for folks. But these are really stark, very almost inverse color palettes, but although they're black and white, of a dancer. And the elegant minimalism And some of the line work in this book makes me think of certain really old school illustrators like Leyendecker.
Huh.
And it's just, there's an archetypal energy to this type of work. And I remember in the documentary, to invoke Jim Lee's name again, he said something like he was talking about, I don't know if it was Sin City or your work in general or you, but he said, and then I could try A, B, or C, and then I'm sure that Frank would tell me I'm using too many lines. It was something like that. And I thought
I give him a hard time.
it was something like that. And
I can't do what he does, so I make fun of it.
Yeah. So I recall collecting, people should check out Jim Lee's penciling too. I mean, back in the day, I collected when he was working on the X-Men and stuff. Just looking at the anatomical work he did with like Colossus and stuff.
Jesus Christ.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
But this seems to access something different. And I'm wondering how you developed the economy of sort of elegant line use and use of negative space, like this use of black and white. Because part of the reason I asked about the perspective is I noticed, which is something you can only really notice in something that's large format and produced this way, is all of the perspective lines that have been erased, right? There's a million perspective lines that have been erased in this.
But the thing is, that makes you feel the...
Exactly. And then you have something like this here.
Yeah.
Right. And this, if you can see this one, I'm hitting with my knee.
Now we see how I got those arms?
Yeah, where you see your mind is creating all the perspective you need to make sense of this as a three-dimensional experience in your brain. But it looks like probably 40, 50, 60 lines of perspective have all been erased. How did you develop this style?
I was early on in Sin City, and I was talking with Dick Giordano. You know who he was?
I know the name.
Yeah, he was a comic book artist for a long time. Mostly known as being an associate of Neal Adams. And he was looking at the early Sin City stuff. And you notice the early Sin City work has much more line work in it than the later stuff. And he was like the best teacher in comics. Okay, he was a good artist and everything, but he was a great editor. He mentored Klaus Janson, for instance, and was a terrific influence over a lot of people. He said, Frank, real New York Italian, all the way, this guy. He said, Frank, I'm looking at this Sin City you're doing. And he said, and I'm thinking about some of the old guys. And I'm thinking, there was this old guy, and he names him, I can't remember right now. And he said, and he was doing stuff kind of like yours, only eventually he just started laying in all the black areas first, put the lines in later. And he found he didn't need so many lines.
That's interesting.
I went home, and the real look of Sin City was born. Because once the black was down, I went, hey, I'm more than halfway home. I'm there. I'll just add a few little things here and there.
Yeah.
And now I've worked that way ever since on everything.
At what point did you also, it seems like, innovate with as I understand it, kind of start to finish, first to last page batch processing, where instead of doing the penciling, the lettering, the inking, the coloring on a per page basis, you're basically doing the penciling for the entire book.
That was Sin City as well. Yeah.
It's just so mind-blowing. Like, it seems to me, I guess in retrospect, that makes so much sense to do it the way that you did it.
Yeah, I decided I'd do all the tissue layouts, trace them all off into pencil drawings, then do all the panel borders. You don't want to be around me on those days. And then lay on all the flat black areas. What this did was it made it more fun every step of the way. And it sped the whole thing up like crazy.
It must have sped it up.
And it made the work so much better. It was idiotic. By the end of it, the line work was so spontaneous. Man.
What is that first step that you mentioned with tissue?
I solved the basic compositional and drawing issues on a separate piece of tissue.
Which is just a type of paper. The
Well,
tissue.
it's a vellum.
Yeah.
It's it's not really a tissue. It's stronger than that.
Mm-hmm.
It's a type of drawing paper, but it's nearly transparent. And I place that marker rough, and my drawing board is a light table.
Mm-hmm.
And I put the actual piece of Bristol board on top of that, and trace that off.
Yep. Got it.
So that I can move things around, I can change the size, I can replace things, and so on.
Mm-hmm. So that was also done on Sin City. That's wild. So a lot of innovation happened on Sin City.
Oh, yeah. So that was a transformative piece of work.
Why did so much coalesce during Sin City in that way?
Well, therein lies a tale.
I love tales.
Because everything was happening. I had broken away from the major publishers, was working with the then young Dark Horse Comics, and we tested the waters with each other with the Martha Washington series, and with Hard Boiled. And I decided I was going to take my baby there. And so I just decided, okay, it's time to reinvent the wheel. Apply the stuff that I've been told. Because I said to Mike Richardson, I said, look, we've done 2 science fiction series. And I know everything's superheroes or science fiction. I want to do a crime comic and in black and white. And he didn't flinch. And so we were rolling with that.
So was it the ability to take that creative leap that seems like it had been building inside you for a very long time?
Yeah.
Is that the kind of creative unlock that then led to these various innovations? Is that the way that you would think about it, or was it?
Well, one thing does lead to another, but mostly most of creative work is problem solving. It's not, God is speaking to me. It's how do I get that nose to look right? It's that set thing. And in this case, it was how to get the look I'm after as efficiently as possible.
Yeah, I mean, I won't show it again. Maybe I can pull it up on the screen as B-roll, but that right-hand page in particular of that female figure.
Oh, yeah.
And the black kind of left portion of the torso, which is framed with black lining, and the right side, from our perspective, framed with the white. I mean, just the economy, the amount of meaning that is transmitted with such a relatively small amount of ink. I know it's in some cases a lot of black in the background.
Actually, yeah.
It's a lot of ink. I know but in terms of line work, that is sort of the lattice work of the perception. It's just so incredible.
And in the early pages in Sin City, there was a lot of line work underneath all that.
Yeah.
Toward the end, it was clicking along. Just that was what it was going to be from the birth.
Yeah. Also, something that it comes to mind, at least for me, in the Japanese way of doing things, and there's a lot of variability, of course, among Japanese artists and so on, but it's very interesting how they apply detail, right? You might see a ton of detail on a small portion of a panel, and then very little on the rest. You might
love that.
Right? Or you might see a page.
It's like the more Imari approach to it. Yeah.
Exactly. And then you might have a page where it's very fast-paced. The line work's pretty sparse, and then there's one panel that has a lot of detail. And the beauty, and this comes also up in Understanding Comics with McLeod, is how much work the brain does really effortlessly between the panels, right? And
it's also where McLeod was applying McLuhan. Because there's a lot of McLuhan thinking in McLeod.
Yeah. I've been loving the book, so thank you for sending me an early copy, Silenn. And I can't wait until I can actually export all my highlights, because there's so many highlights that I've put into it. And what I want to also emphasize for folks, I really believe this, is that if you want to be good at anything, study people who are excellent at something. It does not have to be the same thing you are hoping to pursue. Like if you study Jiro Dreams of Sushi or something like that in an effort to become better at X, and aim for the top of your field that seems totally disparate, there's still so many lessons you can take. And if humans are story-making machines and that we often create meaning, almost always from stories, then studying your work within the realm of comics and film, even if someone is not involved explicitly in comics or film, the lessons can still be applied. And I'll be very curious and excited to see how people in industries and areas that can't even be guessed at this point will implement some of the life lessons from the book. I'll be very curious to see. It'll be very fun. I have to also mention, and I've wanted you to pronounce this name for me. I never thought I would meet you, but since I was a little kid, the Elektra that you did, that I want to say it was a lot of watercolor artwork. Bill, how do you say his last name?
Sienkiewicz. No,
Sienkiewicz. Okay, ish.
Sienkiewicz.
Exactly.
Think Russian. Pretend you're Russian.
That is a beautiful piece of work.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
It's amazing. And
it was a berserk experience for both of us.
Tell me, because that
we
thing...
had such a time.
A good time.
Oh, we were like two 12-year-olds just making a crazy comic.
What was the experience like, and why did you work well together? Maybe that's worth digging into.
Well, first off, we like each other a lot. Okay,
that's a great starting point.
And it was one of those times that happened that you live for. In that, comics had been very restrictive for a very long time. Things like Dark Knight had started busting things open. Watchmen was out and so on. And Bill had gone from being the guy who draws like Neal Adams to being more and more guy who was pulling in Ralph Steadman and doing all this stuff and really becoming his own man.
Yeah.
He had just worked with Alan Moore and he was looking for a much looser kind of arrangement, because Alan's a very dominating writer.
Dominating in the sense that he has an idea of how
he writes a very tight, he's a clockmaker when he writes a story. Watchmen plays off that constantly. And Bill is bucking Bronco. So when Bill and I got together, they just opened Epic Comics at Marvel, back when Marvel was actually trying to loosen up a little bit before it became Marvel again.
Yeah. It's easy for people to forget. I mean, Marvel went through some very hard times before the technology caught up sufficiently to end up with Marvel Studios and so on.
No, I'm talking about when Marvel was really trying to bring in the European influences and stuff like that. It was quite an exciting time. Archie Goodwin was running a fascinating division.
Yeah.
And so I came up with a mini-series, supposed to be 4 issues of Elektra for Marvel Comics. And Marvel couldn't, when they saw what it was, the script was, they went, this can't be part of Marvel Comics. This is just like too goddamn weird. And so it bumped over to the Epic division.
Yeah.
And I gotta give them credit, they didn't just say, we won't do it. And then it went from 4 issues to 8 issues, or whatever it was. And it's like the lid flew off the pot that was on the stove.
How did you give Bill enough reign as a bucking Bronco?
I didn't.
You didn't?
I wrote full scripts.
Okay.
He just drew whatever the fuck he wanted, and I had to pull the whole thing back. Yeah.
Can you explain what full script means in this?
Well, full script is like a screenplay.
It is, right? Yeah.
It only a little stricter because he tells you what each panel number is and exactly what goes in it and what the captions are.
So you would send that to Bill and you'd be like, thanks, appreciate the effort. Let me do this.
But just what would come back would be much more abstract and much more daring.
Cool, but it wouldn't break the clock. It would still work.
It stayed. It did not say it. No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't like send him an exploding tank and get back a bunch of tomatoes rolling down the street. No, but it required reinterpretation of my script,
right?
And I welcomed it though.
Yeah,
because
that sounds fun. It sounds.
I saw brilliance was happening.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun.
And it's just because of that, though, the excitement grew. And I kept expanding the story because all these unexpected elements that he'd throw in, I want to turn them into characters and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And luckily, Archie Goodwin was along for the ride. And you know,
sounds like a blast of a project.
It was an absolute gas. I love that book.
Oh, I mean, I still have it. Literally still have it on Long Island. Let me ask you a question. It may go no. This may be a dead end of a question, but I'm going to ask you anyway. And this is a question I often ask as we start to kind of wind towards landing the plane here. If you had a billboard on which you could put anything non-commercial, right? Metaphorically, to get a message or something in front of billions of people. Could be a statement, a quote, a word, an image, combination. What might you put on that billboard? Does anything come to mind?
Whoa.
A motto, a mantra, anything.
I'm going to get very broad on this.
Okay.
And just say, ask every question.
Ask every question.
Yeah.
What does that mean to you?
This means that we live in a time of silence.
Mm.
People are leaving things unquestioned and unspoken.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a good line. I can't come up with a good one, it seems.
I think ask every question is pretty good. We can take a couple bites at the apple if you like.
Yeah. How about just challenge?
Challenge?
Yeah.
Okay. What does that mean to you?
When you are confronted with things that everybody says,
Mm-hmm.
be ready to challenge them.
Challenge. Push the wall. Defy the code. If everybody says do X, if everybody says you must do Y.
Please say why.
Why?
Why is a pretty good one, too, if you want to go with that.
Why is a good one.
It's just why.
I guess they go together. Both of them go together
Why don't
pretty
you
well.
go why?
Okay.
With the question mark.
Why? Question mark. Ask. Where's the camera? There it is.
Or why's it got to be that way? Why's it got to be that way?
Yeah, why has it got to be that way? They all converge sort of in the same theme.
I'm just trying to go against an age of pathological conformity.
Yes. Often subconscious too. Pathological conformity.
Yeah.
Ask why. Why does it have to be this way? Also with your own thinking. It applies everywhere. Everywhere. Frank, thank you so much. It's great to see you again.
This has been a real pleasure, man.
And everybody, you can find Frank on Instagram at Frank Miller Official. The website is frankmillerinc.com. And you can now pre-order. So absolutely check out Push the Wall, My Life, Writing, Drawing, and the Art of Storytelling. I've been reading it. I'm going to finish it over the next couple of days. Have really been taking a lot of notes. I also took a bunch of notes from this conversation. And we will have links to everything that we talked about in the show notes, as per usual, at tim.blog/podcast. Frank Miller will be the only Frank Miller. If you search by name for guest, you will find this episode. And until next time, be just a bit kinder than is necessary to others, but also to yourself, and ask why. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.
All right.